Hey, Food and Faith Potters, welcome back. We're continuing to have a conversation just around Food and Faith Podcast, what it is, and who in the world we are and how we come to this. And so it really is my pleasure, my very first interview on Food and Faith Pod, to interview my co-host, Anna Woofenden, who is the founder of the Garden Church out in Los Angeles. And who quickly sort of became, if you will, sort of a rising star that all of us are like, wow, Garden Church is amazing. And Anna had done such a remarkable job in getting that off the ground. So it just brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the pod. So Anna, welcome. And tell us a little bit about sort of who you are, what inspired the vision for Garden Church, and sort of what Garden Church became as you were working with that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Sam. It is such a pleasure to be in conversation. So the Garden Church rose out of this deep desire to continue to figure out what it means to be church in this generation. And I know I'm not alone in having many of my peers are no longer involved in church. And I really get it. I deeply get it. But I haven't quite been willing to give up on coming together to love God and love neighbor in community. But I think that it is imperative that we figure out what it means to do that in our generation, in our various contexts. So the Garden Church rose out of my own longing for an expression of church that resonated with the geography and the people and the conversations. And the four particular things that I kept noticing is that we're disconnected from our food, from the earth, from each other, and from God. And that's by no means like the four things, only problems in the world. There are plenty of others. Sure. Those were the ones that just kept coming back and kind of eating away at me. So the Garden Church rose out of a desire to create a space where some of that reconnection could happen. And it was really important to me, the communion or Eucharist, that shared meal has always been a guiding principle in my own call to ministry and the work that I did. So the idea of coming together to eat, to have that sacred meal, but also to have that broader engagement with not just the growing of our food, that was powerful, but also eating it together with all different kinds of people. So one of the reasons like why a garden came out of this desire to have a space that could be could turn some of the norms upside down. I think that church is, I think there's obviously still deep truth to when Dr. King said that Sunday morning is the most segregated hour of the week. And connected with that, it's also the most socioeconomically divided hour of the week. And so thinking about how can we be a church that, when we say all are welcome, that is cross-class as well as various cultures, races, ethnicities, sexual orientation. I mean, all those ways that we want to be welcoming. So as I was looking at like what's an expression of church, it definitely was around food and around the table, and then just this image came of what if we all get our hands dirty? What happens when we all get our hands dirty? And that the knowledge and the wisdom of working the earth often is held by the immigrant grandmother, or the person who's kind of been pushed to the side, and then the like rich young lawyer, if you will, or the like tech startup person is like, I don't know how to grow a tomato. I have no idea. So it grew out of this hunger and those questions to explore and see. By no means is it ever going to be the end all and be all. And I always am very quick to say this is just one expression of church in one setting. But I felt really, really honored to see what can happen when you explore those things together.
That's cool. Well, it has certainly inspired. Me being on the East Coast, you working on that on the West Coast has certainly inspired movements, leaders from across the country to sort of continue in this work. And so we're grateful for that work. So what are you doing now? And why why are, in the middle of your sort of busy life as well, are you invested in this podcast as part of the many things you have on your plate?
Yeah. So I transitioned out of the Garden Church at the end of December, put it into the hands of two amazing pastors who are leading it forward, and a community that's become a church that they're wanting to move forward. And I am moving into some more non-geographic ministry opportunities, doing some consulting and speaking and writing. And this podcast really rises out of gratitude for the opportunities I've had to be in conversation. I particularly think about Wake Forest Divinity has been so generous about bringing together leaders from all different parts of the movement. At a gathering back in March, and I was so struck by how carefully the leaders had invited people from various sectors around the conversation of food and faith and ecology and justice. So it wasn't a bunch of pastors. There were a few of us pastors, but we also had people working, who were farmers. Sorry, my calendar is making noises at me. And who are working in the restaurant industry and working in various ways to work at intersections of justice and faith and food security and agricultural and ecological well-being. And so I just feel like every time I'm in those rooms and the conversations and the stories and what happens around the breakfast table, I want to share it. And I feel that like it's such an honor to be able to hear those stories. And I know how important they are. I think God is at work with this connection. I mean, this connection is not new, right? This is like at the foundation of human and ecological. I mean, these are not new concepts. And I feel like there is a rising conversation, and this feels like a really tangible way that I can be part of sharing that conversation and making it accessible to people who are not necessarily in those rooms, and being able to share those stories more broadly and bring more people into the conversation. I just feel the more that I am involved in this movement, it's like all these wonderful little bunny trails of, oh, so-and-so's doing such and such, and what about that? And then it connects to there. So to be a place to bring the stories together feels like it feels important and exciting, and something I want to dedicate some time to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you feel sort of the same. It's like this holy frustration of like every time I think I've sort of got my arms around it, like there's another lead, there's another opportunity, there's somebody else is doing something that we were unaware of. And so tracing those down is just, like I said, it's this holy frustration. I don't know if you feel that, but that's sort of how I feel most of the time.
It does. Like we tried to make our top 10, if you will, our first 10, and it's like, well, we've got a spreadsheet with a list of like 45 people now, which is awesome, and people that I didn't know before entering into the beginnings of this conversation. So there's an abundance of stories out there, and I want to commit some time to giving some platform and space to have those short stories shared.
Well, I'm so grateful, not only your ability to tell those stories with clarity and with enthusiasm, and sort of your drive to go find those stories. So like I said, I'm super excited to be working with you and just to uncover those stories with you. So Anna, thanks for sharing a little bit of your story, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the pod.
Awesome. You too.